What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today when I talk to you about Virgin Galactic, I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and why you might need to really add it to your watch list. Before I get into any of that, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So on Friday, it did have some pretty good momentum, very volatile, but then again, that's kind of normal for Virgin Galactic. So it did close 2.88% in the green, 318 the low, 364 the high, and you did have a little bit higher volume. So 10.1 million shares being traded, 7.6 is the average. These are some of the transactions that did occur on the dark pool on Friday. It doesn't seem like all that much, but in comparison to what normally does happen for it, it is kind of a good thing. So that does show that institutions were somewhat paying attention to it. So let me know your viewpoint on that. But ultimately, in case you do not know, what got it very hyped up recently was kind of that feud between Elon and Trump. So Trump outright saying that, unfortunately, Elon might lose all the government contracts. So essentially, that is going to really impact multiple different aspects of Elon's businesses, but one of which that would really help Virgin Galactic is SpaceX. This article kind of goes over all of that, but essentially that's kind of the moral of the story, is just that Elon really pissed off the wrong person that is keeping SpaceX afloat. So in reality, even though it doesn't really impact Virgin's day-to-day business, it kind of knocks out one of their competitors for the most part. So at the end of the day, this is what is causing it to move higher. There was ultimately this that was posted. It was late yesterday. So Trump on whether he's considering cutting Musk's government contracts. We'll look at everything only if it's to be fair for him and the country. So still kind of stuck in limbo. And this is why you did have a lot of volatility, because if this was a sure thing, Virgin would have had another like a 30-40% green day as what we had a couple weeks back. So in reality, this is a kind of stuck in limbo catalyst. So let me know your viewpoint on that. But this upcoming week is going to be very interesting. We have a lot of big data points. So starting off on Wednesday, we have CPI, PPI on Thursday, and then Michigan consumer sentiment on Friday, all of which have the ability to move the market. So you have that underlying factor. But more importantly to Virgin, you have squeeze plays. So I'm kind of calling this week as a squeeze week because you have Chewy and GameStop, both of which are seen as pretty iconic meme stocks for the most part. Maybe not so much Chewy, but definitely GameStop. And so essentially, if GameStop does hit a home run earnings, causes a nice ripple across the broader market, you're going to have a lot of entities that are shorting. They will be starting to mitigate risk and start to cut their losses across the board. So we've seen that time and time again, especially in 2021, and I believe it was 2023 as well, where because of these meme stocks, it causes like a small squeeze. And so ultimately, looking at Virgin, even on Friday, shorts increased 51,000 shares. Currently, 31.06% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 12.41 million shares overall are being shorted. Cost to borrow average is 279.08. That is an annual rate, not a daily rate, so just be kind of aware of that. But generally, shorts have, I feel like they realized that they have and were overextended. You can kind of see from this green line, they've been slowly returning. So at the end of the day, they have returned, I think, like 10-15% of their position ultimately, but still, they are overextended. So again, if GameStop or possibly even Chewy does have a pretty good kick-ass earnings, that could cause a ripple effect across the board. So you have that stuck in limbo catalyst, such as the whole Trump Elon type of scenario, and then you have a squeeze aspect for this week. So let me know your viewpoint on that. Going over some additional data, looking at the options. So you had 385,000 in calls on Friday, 190,000 in puts. 47% of all the options being done though were bearish in nature. And you can kind of see just based on the overall dollar value, Friday was up there. Normally it's like 269,000, kind of low stuff, but you do see a very good put/call ratio. So people are still anticipating a little bit more of a further kind of upside from that. From here though, you do see a consensus for obviously going into this upcoming week for it to be roughly around that $3.50 to $4 range. So Pretty good stuff for that. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 3 to 350. So clearly not much movement is really anticipated based on all that. But on a technical standpoint, with it at 322, it is trading right now between this pivot and this S1. Virgin, I think I don't need to tell you, is a very volatile stock. And this is why you do have a very wide gaps based on the fib levels. So this is why, again, you have a lot of volatility. So 274 is going to be a strong support. And then flip side, 421 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. I personally do not feel this 274 is going to be touched. Most likely, given the circumstances, you're going to see the market move higher this week. So Virgin essentially should be able to kind of piggyback off that. So realistically, around that 421 could be touched. And even given where Virgin is at, that is a pretty good return on investment. Again, that's if everything goes according to plan for data points, Michigan consumer sentiment, PPI, and also CPI. If negative, then yeah, of course, that could really disrupt a lot and thus this price target. But nonetheless, though, there hasn't been any new analyst ratings. So since my last video, I think I did it like 2 weeks ago, you had an analyst rating 19 days ago, $32 price target, Goldman Sachs, NOAA, who has a 52% success rating. So pretty good for that. Over the last 3 months, you do have a consensus $11.94, and that does represent a 270.81% upside. So that's pretty good, something to kind of take note of. Aside from all of what I've mentioned, there really isn't all that much kind of talking about Virgin's day-to-day business through articles or anything. There's a lot of articles coming out about their technicals, but nothing of substance, like I said. So aside from all that fun stuff, they did also have their shareholder meeting on June the 5th. So I don't believe there was any speculative kind of topics or proposals, but on the actual chart itself, it is currently wedge bound between that 50-day moving average and the 100-day moving average. So 365 is going to be that kind of point to watch for, and in fact, it did bounce off of that on Friday. So ultimately, that's what caused some consolidation on Friday. But normally what does happen is you see a secondary test of that. So that could be coming early next week, a retest of that 100-day moving average. And if it is able to get above that, matching with some good catalysts and maybe even GameStop, that catalyst as well, then you'll have this 200-day moving average at 510. So big things could be coming. Let me know your viewpoint on that. Flip side, 307 is that 50-day moving average, and we know that is pretty much diamond support right now, so it bounced off of that. So we'll have to kind of wait and see. It is getting kind of pinched right here. So in the next 2 weeks, you're going to see either a extreme move higher or an extreme move lower. Stochastic RSI is considered very oversold, so that could really stand to benefit it going forward with a lot of the good catalysts that I did mention. So let me know your thoughts on Virgin. Are you still a buyer? Are you like a seller? What have you been doing with Virgin? And do you agree that some of these that I mentioned are a catalyst, or is there something else that you feel could really push Virgin higher? So let me know your thoughts. Hopefully everyone's having a good weekend. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon. I give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.